Hello, everybody. It's Torben Anderson, your host from Rewired for Success. If you are a business owner that wants to take serious control of your business for scale-up success, then you have come precisely to the right place. Whether you're a startup or an established business or getting ready to scale, then this is for you. As you know, my usual mantra, the most important thing if you want to scale is to focus on people, process, and technology. With all of those parts, you can truly scale. It could be people, process, tools and technology, the same thing, but mainly it's about having those three things go in the right way. So today's interview series continues, and it's all about helping you and your people scale your business. And I'm excited to present today's guest in a moment. But first, today's episode is sponsored by Rewired Tech Teams. Rewired Tech Teams help you scale your technology teams when things are maybe feeling like, well, maybe a bit disorganized. Do your tech teams keep missing deadlines? Perhaps you're wondering what everyone's doing and you've got that zero visibility. Nobody is following a common way of working, and you would love to see how your teams can systemize and empower themselves to run on autopilot. Your teams might even be distributed and you don't really know what they're doing, where they are, and how to really measure the value and the output that your team is doing. If you're interested in this, stay to the end of the show and I'll tell you exactly how you can learn more about helping your technology teams. I would like to shortly introduce Clay Green. Clay Green is the Chief Enthusiasm Officer at Enthusiasticlay. What if you could experience your best in the zone? So get yourself into the flow, that moment where you experience this kind of flow, you're in the zone. What if you could do it every day? What if you could do it on every single task or at any time of the day? What if you could actually control it safely? Clay says you can do it. Clay says you can do it anytime. And this guy is the best in the world at teaching entrepreneurs and owners of businesses how to do exactly that. So I'm really excited about today's podcast, and I just want to introduce Clay Green. Hey, Clay, how are you?
Torben, I'm awesome, brother. Thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it. I'm so stoked to talk about rewiring. Thank you for that intro. That was awesome. I'm really excited about that. Rewiring brains, actually applying that superhuman strength, that superhuman moment. I love it.
Fantastic. I love it too. So tell me more about, tell me a bit more about your background. Tell me about Enthusiasticlay.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you mispronounced it, but you mispronounced it perfectly. It's exactly right. That's the point of it. Back, you and I share a common thing in the back. We went through a class together, and that class taught us one of the things that class taught me was to ask everybody, hey, what's my superpower? And everybody told me my enthusiasm, and I checked it out, and enthusiasticlay.com was available. So it's a play on words, enthusiastically. I tell everybody to live enthusiastically. So it's tricky because you got to misspell the word a little bit. But to answer your question, my background, I'm going to go fast through this because we have a very few minutes. This is going to be a short one. Alabama High School, general education. Alabama High School, Forrest Gump. Yes, exactly. Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump High School education. Went into the U.S. Navy. My general basic, I was bored in school, failing education, turned into, holy cow, I can now operate nuclear reactors. I was a nuclear reactor operator on submarines. Not only was I a nuclear reactor operator, but when I got through the school, they picked me to be an instructor. So less than half the people get through the school, then less than 1% of the people get picked to stay and be an instructor. So I was not just like, that was my first, holy cow, I'm really good at something. I'm really good at this. They want me to teach others how to do this. That was my first taste of professional training. And basically, and then I got out of the Navy. I went on a submarine and I decided the Navy wasn't for me and I got out of the Navy. I've worked making the computer chips that are making all this possible. I worked at Intel and companies like Intel building computer chips. And mostly during that whole time for about 20 years, most of that time was spent in some kind of training role. So my passion has been training. The next step is extreme sports. That zone, man, Torben, you know the zone, right? You know what I'm talking about.
Totally.
What's something that got you in the zone when you were a kid, or when you were younger, or hell, last week maybe? What do you do to get into the zone?
I love off-road triathlon. That is what I love doing. So, cross-country running, mountain biking, and open water swimming. That's my passion.
Have fun with that. like it seems like a little bit too much work for me, but just skosh. But you get into the zone, right?
Totally.
So I was doing that. I realized that we are all basically chasing that zone and that feeling. I did it with snowboards, motorcycles, girls, but let's go to the motorcycles for a second, because that's where it kind of all came together. I was in the class that we share. I was in that first big class, and I hit a deer going 85 miles an hour on my motorcycle, and I did not crash.
Wow.
Now we don't have time in this interview. I can break down, because at that time I had been teaching new motorcycle riders for a decade how to not die on a motorcycle. So when this happened, I knew a lot about, here's the way I explain it. I can tell you exactly what was happening between not just the rubber in the road, but the atoms of the rubber, of the tire, and the atoms of the road. Like, because of my nuclear reactor training, my background, my physics background, I knew everything going on. So when I say I should have crashed, I should have crashed. I can tell you, like, we'll break down that story. So my question became, how? How did I not crash? And the answer was my brain. So all my training people, like, I realized when I was young, when I was 20 years old, Torben, I was 21, 22 maybe, I was teaching kids how to operate, how to stay focused on a boring, like, if everything's operating right, nothing's happening. Okay, you got to keep your attention right here on this big panel, this control panel, this reactor plant control panel. Don't get distracted by the fact that you're 1,000 feet under the water. Don't get distracted by the fact that there's somebody yelling at you. Don't get distracted by the fact that there's a fire burning in a trash can next to you. Stay focused, because as soon as you turn to put that fire out, that's when something's going to go wrong. That's how we train people, right? So
Yeah.
I realized two things. When that deer hit me, and after the deer hit me, I found a book, and I'll throw the name of the book out. It explained how my brain was operating. So I realized a couple things. I realized my entire life I've been teaching people how to think, not react.
Right.
So our natural desire, our natural situation is we react. I'm pointing at the back of my brain back here, the top of my spinal cord. Our natural instinct is to run or fight or flight, right? Or something else. We won't go there now. We can go there later in a deeper, long interview if we need to. But if you are operating a nuclear reactor, or if you're riding a motorcycle, or if you're trying to build a business or be effective at a job, your natural reactions probably are not the right things to do. That doesn't mean that they're gonna stop, especially building a business, right? Torben, you and I have some experiences that we shared. You know it, I know it, everybody that's built a business knows it. Your natural reaction is to not do the one thing that you need to do the most.
Absolutely.
And so that's the core of what I realized after I hit that deer, that I now understand how to help people. I'm sorry. So that was one thing. Think, do not react. The second thing I learned, every one of us, our entire lives, are basically chasing that feeling, that in the zone, the state of flow feeling.
Mm,
That's all we live for. Why?
absolutely.
Yeah. So I help people learn to think, not react. That's step one. And step two is develop the practices and the habits to succeed at feeling that state of flow every day.
Yeah, with Rewired, I totally agree with that. I mean, when we talk about technology teams, that's what it's all about, is especially leading technology teams. How do you get people in the flow? Because, for example, if your technology teams are building software, they could be building content, they could be building a nuclear reactor, whatever it is. What happens there is what your job as a leader is to make sure that your team is in a flow. And the best way to do that is to make sure that they think before they react, and also challenging your teams to problem solve, to think. It's very easy to go, oh, I can't do that. Or maybe this isn't really how I was wired. But actually challenging people to think, no, hang on, I actually can think about this in a different way. How can you support and help your guys and your team, to really rewire themselves? A great way to do that is to ask a really challenging question, really challenge people. How do you find you do that, Claire?
The book, let's start here. The
Yeah.
book that I read that I suggest people read is The Rise of Superman.
Wow.
It's about the state of flow. I've been in both situations, Torben. I've been on a lot of technology teams. I've been under challenged and I've been over challenged. So it's not just, in my opinion, and based on a lot of research, it's not just a really challenging question. It's just the right amount of challenge, and it's just the right topic. There's a
Yeah, like,
lot going on there.
yeah,
So
like,
you've really got to know your people. You've got to know their strengths, their weaknesses. You've really got to know and understand the goal of the team. And there's a lot of, I'm going to use the word intimacy. You got to get real and intimate with it.
yeah.
A lot of feeling going on. To
Yeah, I
answer,
agree.
that's how I challenge people. That's, yeah.
Great. Tell us more about that. How do you effectively rewire people through your business, through your enthusiasm? Tell us more about that.
How do I specifically rewire people? Well, the first step, and this is the completely counterintuitive part. I literally just got off of a call with a very, very smart man. Um, he taught himself how to play music, and he can play multiple instruments. He can't read a lick of music, but he can play the hell out of a piano and a guitar and all kinds of music. It's just by ear. This guy is that means his brain is very effective at a lot of things. When I'm dealing with teams specifically, we'll back up a little bit. So I just got off the call with that guy, and his brain was able to trick him into not being focused on the things that we wanted to focus on that would move him forward. So I had to figure out and quickly come up with a way to get him to look where he didn't want to go so that he could figure out the answers to the questions that he was struggling with, kind of freeing his mind. If we look at the four stages of flow, there's struggle, and they're pretty obvious. You'll understand these as I say the names of them. Struggle, release, state of flow, and recovery.
Hmm.
So most people are stuck in struggle. They're too afraid to actually release. And that's how I identify the struggle, take their mind off the struggle, let them release the anxiety. And once the anxiety is released, then everything, then the brain gets out of the way and the mind can solve the problem, if that makes sense. Does that make sense, Torben?
Absolutely. I mean, we were talking about people and how to support people getting into the flow. Now we're talking about the process. How do we help people rewire themselves? So absolutely, I agree. I mean, it's what's holding you back, identifying it, and then releasing that. And then you said there's some further steps. What are those next steps?
Well, these are I laid out the stages of flow.
Yeah.
So this is what I teach people is how to manage these stages of flow effectively every day. There's a struggle period, there's a release period, there's the actual performing in the state of flow period, and then there has to be recovery when the brain consolidates what you just learned. So that's the stages of flow and the steps that you learn that I teach people how to manage. And that can be groups, or that can be individuals. And it's a very, very personal thing because everybody does things differently. But the path that we took was a question to challenge people. And it's funny that most people will focus on what they're struggling with to challenge people with. And most of the time, you end up getting a forced response or a forced answer. And that forced answer isn't the magic answer, it's the processed answer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it sounds to me like what you're saying is it's all about helping people focus on the positive, focus on the goal, focus on what they want to do, what they're really passionate about, where they really, really want to go. And yeah, as I
But
say,
there's
it's all about helping people get out of the way of themselves, right?
that release part, exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
That release part. There's that part where, yeah, yeah, where you can't be solely focused on the struggle, on what you're worried about.
yeah. Fantastic. I really like that. If you're listening to this, DM me directly on this. Give it a try. Go through these steps that Clay's mentioned, and let us know. We'll provide all Clay's contact details at the end of the program. But if you're listening to this, I'd love to hear from you, hear what you think about this.
I would too. I've got to support people in that process takes at least 3 months to learn how to actually fully implement these things. And I want to throw a word out here: safely,
Yeah,
because we're dealing with the most addictive thing on the planet when we start dealing with the state of flow. It is cocaine. That when you take a hit of cocaine, it does not release the same amount of chemicals of pleasure in your body that actually performing in the state of flow does. So be careful if you go play on this. But one of the things that the contact info and stuff like that, I'll include. I have a course that I'm giving away full of it's just 10-minute videos with specific tactics on specific things to do to make one work session super productive. And then once you've made that work session super productive, then you can back up and apply it to your whole day. It's kind of like a mini flow course, if you will. And it's free.
great. So there, our next question would be the tools, because we talk in Rewired a lot about the DNA of something. So if it's the DNA of you or the DNA of a business, what really makes that DNA of a business? And it's people. We have people. We have the processes of how to make things better, and we've got tools like you've just mentioned. Tools can be a simple tool or a process, a checklist that you follow, or it can be a technology that you use to support your processes. And with all of those parts, you've got everything you need to be able to, scale your team, scale your people, and just be the best business that you can possibly be out there.
I concur wholeheartedly. Those processes are everything. Yeah. Yeah. I all of a sudden have all these thoughts that I want to share, but we're limited on time, aren't we?
Well, why don't we look a little bit at what you think is the next thing in your journey? What is the next thing that people can think about in terms of what you're doing and where they're going? What is the next big thing for people?
For people, in my opinion, consciousness.
Right.
More and more people are becoming more aware of how unconsciously most of us, including me, have been living most of our lives. Consciously deciding and doing the work to figure out what works for me and what works for you, Torben, in our business or in our life with the people, processes, and what was the other one? I'm sorry.
The technology or tools that we use.
The
Yeah.
tools, the
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
the process, and the tools to support that process. I love it. That's exactly consciousness, being aware of those things is, in my opinion, where we're going, what is happening, why I'm doing this, why you're doing this, and why people are watching this right now. Totally, or listening.
I love it. I really love it. Any final thoughts for the Rewired audience? Any final thoughts?
Number one thing that I teach people is to think and not react. The number one reason the reason I do that, if you're not watching this if you're listening to this, I'm sorry, but if you're watching this, look at my hand. That's the right hand. That's the hand that grips the throttle on a motorcycle. On a motorcycle, if you're riding down the road at the wrong time, you do this. Did you see that, Torben? It was
Yeah.
small.
Yeah.
So what I did was I quickly rolled off and rolled back on the throttle.
Yeah.
If you do that at the wrong time, you can die. That's a reaction. If you see something that scares you, you want to slow down. But then you realize, wait, slowing down is the wrong thing to do, so immediately they get back on the gas. So the number one thing, and I literally have seen people die because they reacted on a motorcycle at the wrong time, the wrong way, and they died. And it's sad. And so that's my core motivation, is to save lives. And I believe that I'm doing that with this message. The single biggest tool that you or I have, and the most important thing that we can do, excuse me, hello, coffee, sorry, is recognize what matters the most in not reacting. And that is simply your brain. Your brain is the most powerful thing on this planet. There is no question about that. What we do with our brains is the most important thing. So my challenging question is, how many hours a day are you exercising your brain intentionally the way that you want to?
Yeah.
And the vast majority of people, even though they've been told this their whole lives, or at least since they've started studying things like leadership, is meditation is vital. Use that other tool, Google, find a way to meditate today. Start a meditation habit today. That is my number one, biggest, most important message to the world.
Great. Thank you. And I really love the metaphor. I'm going to have to just spend a few minutes on this for two reasons. One is I've been on a motorbike 3 times and I crashed every single time.
I'm sorry, Torben. Let me interrupt you. This is not a metaphor.
Yeah.
That is a reality.
Mm.
I can explain it to you. I have seen people die because they reacted.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not a metaphor. This is hard. This is as real as I can make it. So you've been on a motorcycle 3 times. You crashed each time.
Yeah, I survived it. Unfortunately, we actually did lose somebody when we were younger. But I think it's what I was more interested in what you were saying was the counterintuitive thinking that, you know, when you start losing traction coming around a corner on a motorbike, your instinct might be to put on the brakes, for example. But actually, the counterintuitive thinking is actually to speed up, because you all know physics. When you accelerate around a corner, you actually increase the traction on the road. And this is just another great example of the sort of counterintuitive thinking that I'm really passionate about, and that I can hear you're passionate about. And we just want to get people thinking differently. So love it.
It's so important, in my opinion, Torben. And it's not always counterintuitive. That's the funny part. It's just, you've got to be conscious, right? Because sometimes you're supposed to turn right, and after you consciously think about it, yep, it's still a right decision. your reaction was to turn right. So, and yeah, but you're so right. So right. 100% agreement.
Great. Well, just before we close here, how can people get hold of you, Clay?
Awesome. Yeah. I am working on being more present on LinkedIn. I am very present on Facebook. Get up in Facebook, find me, Clay Green, Enthusiasticlay, misspelled. So just spell enthusiastic and then LAY. Facebook, enthusiasticlay.com, LinkedIn. That's the path. And get that. Basically, my free course is 5 days to superhuman focus and productivity. So if you're working on becoming more focused and more productive, I've got 5 videos, 10-minute videos, and you can apply something every day and it will impact you. I guarantee it. It can't not.
Well, maybe I'll be one of those people.
Awesome.
Appreciate your time, man. Thanks again for coming on.
Dude, Torben, I'm so thankful for what you do, man. I really appreciate, I really am thankful for people that do this, because frankly, the challenges that you face are not my challenges to overcome. And I'm so thankful for people that can overcome those challenges. So proud of you, man.
Yeah, thanks again. Cheers for now, man.
Have a good day, everybody.
Cheers. So I hope you guys enjoyed that interview with Clay Green. I'm sure you felt the passion, I certainly did, and that we got a few kind of really important nuggets there about how you can both support, help, and rewire your teams, your people, to really take themselves to the next level. It's all about focusing on that goal. Get people out of the way of themselves, get them moving forward, get them focused on their goals, identify what's holding them back, but really focus on the positive, focus on the goal, and get your teams all focused on that same goal. It's amazing what can happen, and you will know immediately. You'll get this, sort of magical buzz feeling when a team is in flow and when a team is moving in the right direction. Again, I wanted to mention today's show was sponsored by Rewired Technology Teams. If you are interested in knowing how your teams can be better organized, you feel like you're firefighting, you feel like your team's not really getting a chance to do the new things, the real great innovative stuff that you want to be doing, then right now go over to rewired.co, rewired.co, and book a strategy session there. It will be free. We will focus on how your teams are currently organized, and I will make sure that you go away with clear actions to provide both time, efficiency, and cost savings, while always hitting your deadlines, while even most importantly, helping you help your teams to exceed your expectations. Because really these days, just being a mediocre team is just not good enough. We want your team to scale. We want your team to be ready to basically get the next team in place and the next team in place and the one after that. We want you to get to the next level of scale. So again, thanks so much for joining today. I'm Torben Anderson. I'm the founder of Rewired, and you've been listening to Rewired for Success. Till next time.